blessed. It's been a while. I hope everyone's having a fruitful and blessed Lent. I just wanted to post a reflection, something that I've been thinking about recently. There's a lot of new people converting to Orthodoxy, becoming catechumens or inquiring, and I thought I'd just share maybe my experience and maybe share some of my tips. I'll start off by saying this. Don't be surprised that you don't know everything. When I first attended Orthodox Church, I didn't know the traditions, how to enter an Orthodox Church properly. I think I said that in my testimony video, that I knew to walk into a church I needed to bow and make the sign of the cross, but I didn't know what to do next, lighting a candle, kissing the icons and etc. and things like that. So I would say don't feel bad about not knowing what to do and when to do what. That will come with time. Learning the traditions of the church. I'm still learning to this day, and I've been received into the church. There's still many things that I need to learn. So don't be discouraged by the fact that you may not know what to do when and things like that. So yeah. Other than that, I would say, of course, once you're ready to say that, you want to convert and want to start the process of becoming a baptized or chrismated or baptized and chrismated Orthodox Christian, then of course speak to your priest and they will set out, the guideline, the journey, the catechumen process, and whatever your bishop has laid out for the archdiocese, follow that. As St. Ignatius says, follow your bishop as you would follow Christ. Submit to your bishop. So submit to whatever your bishop says. I know there's a lot of controversy and perhaps questions around, if I've received a Trinitarian baptism, does that mean my baptism is valid? Is it not valid? Things like that. Will I be accepted in every single church? One thing that you need to remember is that Orthodoxy, of course, we have the canons, but we also have economia. And thus, through economia, it will be determined by your bishop what the process is and how you're received into the church. There have been different things for different times in history. You can look at the canons of the early ecumenical councils and you will see this. For example, in the Second Ecumenical Council, the Council of Constantinople, you will see canons for reception of certain heretical sort of Christian groups and how they were received. I'm pretty sure, and if I'm mistaken, please correct me, I'm not a theologian. It states that those who have received the Trinitarian baptism, including I think Arians, were received again through chrismation, and those who received single immersions or the form was wrong, that they were received again via baptism. So yeah, these things are not monolithic in the church. Again, it is not for you to interpret the canons, it's for the bishop to interpret the canons. And so thus, whenever you are accepted into the Orthodox Church, that's it. You're an Orthodox Christian. Don't question it. You don't need to, have an existential crisis about it. In terms of that, once you're comfortable with how you're going to be received and you've discussed with your priest, you become a catechumen. Now, a catechumen, most of us have this concept that when I'm a catechumen, I have to do thousands and thousands of pages of reading and things like that, but everyone has a different process. For example, for me, my process took almost a year, and it was a lot of reading, but it wasn't all reading. For me, in the beginning, it was reading, also learning the traditions, prayer, and etc. So it's a different process for everyone. Not all of us are big readers. Not all of us are have the same intelligence, and not all of us are the same people. So for different people, there are different processes. For some people, it takes longer. For some people, shorter. So I'll just go through my experience. For me, I started off with reading The Orthodox Way by Bishop Kalistos Ware, and then it just went from there. I have some other books that I read, of course. I read the Eucharist by Father Alexander Schmemann. I read also Christos Yannaras, I think Elements of Faith, that was suggested to me by my priest. There was also the Orthodox Church. It basically goes through the history of Orthodox Church. It's a book by Bishop Kalistos Ware, and I think there were also other books as well, though I can't recall them. I will put a list in the description below of the books that I read as a catechumen, and I would advise that if any of you out there are catechumens, to discuss with your priest whether these books are appropriate or not. It's not just books. I would say a lot of us get caught up on, needing to know the dogmas and all the specific theology, but as the saints say, I believe it was Saint Maximus the Confessor who said that the theology without practice is the theology of demons. And what is practice? How do we practice our faith? There are many ways that we practice our faith, but mainly it's through the divine liturgy. What is important is attending divine liturgy and church services. Obviously, the most important is the divine liturgy, but I would advise going to as many services as possible. If that's not possible, discuss that with your priest if you live too far away, if you have a job, if you have responsibilities. Of course, there's always economia. Discuss that with your priest. But I would say going to as many services as possible is the best bet. And another thing would be is discussing, how to practice in this stage, in this catechumen stage. So, for example, having a prayer roll, like getting a prayer book from your local church, discussing what type of prayers you should be doing, how you should be praying, what is the process, things like that. Prayer is very central to our faith, of course. That's how we converse with our Lord. So, yeah, I would say working out a prayer roll with your priest, extremely important. I would say over trying to, really delve into the deep theology, I would recommend discussing a prayer roll and the spiritual life over really, really delving into extremely deep theology, because one, it may confuse you, and two, without practice, how can you delve into the deep theology of the church? So I would say it's very important. Another thing I would say is very important is if you're struggling with certain passions, don't wait until you're received into the church, until you can actually receive the Holy Mystery of Confession. I would say, don't hesitate to perhaps speak to your priest, ask for an appointment or something to discuss these passions and how to deal with them. Because that way you're starting to purify yourself. You're starting to, live a sort of Christian Orthodox life pre-baptism. So when you get there, you've already got some experience of how to battle those passions. For someone like me, I went to a parish where they spoke Dutch. So the Divine Liturgy was mostly in Dutch. Where I'm in a Dutch-speaking country, so it was difficult for me to understand the Divine Liturgy. I would advise that if you go to an ethnic parish or go to a parish that doesn't speak your language, I would say follow the Divine Liturgy. Follow the services through a service book or a prayer book. The Jordanville prayer book has the entire Divine Liturgy in there of St. John Chrysostom, and I believe it has the parts where it differs with St. Basil's Divine Liturgy. So I would say follow the Divine Liturgy in your own language while it's happening. It may be difficult because you don't know the other language, but if you're in a different country or an ethnic parish, it would be good to perhaps make friends with someone and ask them to help you, to ask them where you are in certain parts of the Divine Liturgy and follow it. Really get the meaning, because the central sort of core of the faith is the Divine Liturgy, the worship provided in the Divine Liturgy, where, the Holy Spirit is being called down to consecrate the gifts, the holy gifts. So it is extremely important for us to know what's going on with the Divine Liturgy, and specifically the Divine Liturgy, the main Sunday worship. So that's also one of my tips. That's something I started doing because I realized, okay, I'm not a native Dutch speaker. I'm trying to learn the language, but I want to know what's going on in the central sort of worship service every Sunday. I want to know what's going on, and I believe that's very important. Of course, when it comes to all of these things, always speak to your parish priest. If you are in doubt, the best thing to do is not to search it up on Google or YouTube or look at my videos or someone else's videos. Always your first point of contact should be your parish priest. Another tip I would have is during your sort of catechumen stage, make friends with people, socialize with people, go to coffee hour. Don't be afraid to stay behind if you have time. Speak to people. Don't, some of us, especially a lot of us in this day and age, because we're so occupied by our phones, social media and everything, interacting with people in real life is difficult. And trust me, I had a similar sort of situation. I didn't really speak to a lot of people. I forced myself to go to coffee hour even if I was turning up to church alone. And so I think it's very useful for catechumens to do that because, as my priest calls it, coffee hour is the liturgy after the liturgy. It's like everyone comes upstairs. Now that everyone's been communing with God, they commune with each other. So it's very important for us to do that and establish perhaps relationships, personal relationships with people who are, Christians, people of the same faith. And it's just a good way to socialize, to get along, to be really in your parish, to be an active member of your parish. I would also advise as a catechumen, perhaps if it's possible, to maybe visit some monasteries, Check if there are any monasteries around you. Check if there are monasteries that you could visit perhaps abroad if you have the time and the money. Perhaps arrange a trip with someone to visit a monastery, because monasteries are great spiritual nourishment, and perhaps you'll learn a lot from going to these monasteries. While I was a catechumen, I didn't get a chance to visit a monastery. I really wish I did, but now I've visited a few. I think it's a good idea to visit a monastery if possible. And one thing I will say about visiting monasteries is that it is naturally designed to be difficult to reach without a car or without transport, or it's designed to be sort of out there. So if you can, go with a few people. If you cannot drive, find some people that you can go with. And I think it's a great idea, and it's very spiritually nourishing, and not just spiritually nourishing, but also getting the experience. It's different to sort of normal parish life. It's very intense, and these monks who dedicate themselves fully to Christ, it perhaps may give you an idea, if you're not married yet, whether you want to become a monk or a nun, a monastic, after you've been received into the church, or perhaps if you desire to be married. So these are good things to think about in your catechumen stage. Of course, as always, with all of these tips, I say, discuss with your parish priest, because they will know best. Another tip I would give is perhaps not to focus so much on jurisdiction and jurisdictional issues. I see a lot of people discussing I want to be Russian because they're based, and I want to be a Greek because this, and I want to be Antiochian because this, and it's like, no. If it is a canonical Eastern Orthodox Church, if the parish suits your needs, if the parish priests are great, and you have a relationship with them and a relationship with the parish and the parishioners, then it shouldn't concern you which jurisdiction they're in, unless, of course, their bishop is, someone a bit controversial, someone like, for example, Elpidophoros in America. Then, of course, I would say, all right, fair enough. However, those are special circumstances. I feel like among ortho bros online and all these online ortho people, there's a lot of stuff about jurisdiction this and jurisdiction that. It does not matter which jurisdiction you're in, because there is only one Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. There is only one church. There is only one Christ. It does not matter which jurisdiction you are in, because you are always in that one body. If you're Russian, Greek, Antiochian, Jerusalem Patriarchate, if you're Serbian Orthodox, if you're Romanian, it doesn't matter. You are part of the one Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. So it does not matter which jurisdiction you enter in, you will be able to commune at any canonical Eastern Orthodox Church. So don't worry about jurisdictional issues. They don't concern you unless there is some crazy schism or something happens. But until then, yeah, it doesn't matter. If you're Orthodox, you're Orthodox. So yeah, don't get too caught up with the sort of jurisdictional issues. So other than that, I would say these are sort of my tips. Other than that, I hope you've enjoyed this video, this short reflection on sort of the catechumen period, the catechumen stage. And I wish all of you a blessed Lent. And for all of you catechumens out there, I hope you get received when ready. And I hope you have a great rest of your catechumen stage.